Just a Job is the podcast for the modern woman to redefine what success looks like. We highlight real women and their real stories.
Hey, it's your girls Ed and Sam over here with our hats. Welcome back to another episode of Just a Job.
Oh my
It's
God.
your trucker girls over here with our Howdy hat and Fat Boy Surf Club hats. We're happy to be here. Happy Monday, everybody.
Yes. Happy Monday. I debated on if I wanted to wear this hat or not because I don't have my hair down, so I feel like I look
You're
not
gorgeous.
so great. But Ellen, you look amazing. I love your hat.
Oh, thanks. Sarah, tell us what's on our agenda today.
I think because this episode is such a good one, I'm excited to get into it. So let's just stick with colors. Ellen, red, yellow, green. Where are you?
I am green. I feel great. Today is not Monday, even though everyone's listening on a Monday. It's Friday. It's a great day. We're going out for a fabulous sushi dinner that literally looks over the ocean this evening. I have had a great morning. I've got a fun weekend planned. Next week, we're doing some podcast strategy stuff. I'm feeling great. What color are you? Red, yellow, green.
I'm red hat in the sense of I'm doing really well. So therefore I'm green. So hot, I'm green. No, to say this week has been interesting is definitely a good one, or a good way to describe it. Like with the change of consulting and stuff, like I've just had this energy this week and it's been so fun. Like that
Good.
kind of energy that you get when you're in college and you're like really excited about your major, or like when you first learn about jobs and stuff outside it, and you just like kind of have this like rose colored glasses on.
Yeah, like a new joie de vivre.
Yes. And it's really exciting. And so I'm very, very much looking forward to spending some time. It's supposed to be rainy tomorrow, so spending some time just like combing through things and getting myself straight. And then next week we're hitting the ground running, starting to apply for jobs and figure out what's next in my life. So feeling good, feeling in control.
Good. And congrats on like closing a chapter and starting a new one. Like, you know, what's the thing? ABC, always be celebrating. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next week will be good. It's the changing of the guards. I think it's going to be really good for you.
It is definitely a good way to put it.
We are going to be heading into an episode with a career coach of mine. Her name is Megan Elizabeth Diaz, and she is incredible. I had so much fun recording her episode, editing her episode, meeting with her. Like, it just felt like our conversation was so, like, it flew by, and it was like talking to a friend. It was so great. So I hope everyone really enjoys it. She is someone that is almost like a mentor to me now in kind of where I'm at. And like I said, she's got so many great tips for job seekers, or if you're interested in like optimizing your current resume, staying like proactive just in case. So she's definitely someone that I want to encourage everybody to like connect with or follow on LinkedIn. She's just got a ton of really great resources. So be sure to check her out. We hope everybody enjoys her episode. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Hi, everybody. We're going to jump into an interview with Megan. Megan is a career coach with over 10 years of experience working with 5,000 diverse job seekers from all industries to define personal brand and increase confidence in application materials like resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, and behavioral interviews to pivot careers and or take steps in their career development. Megan is published in 25 articles with content centered around topics involving HR, talent, recruitment, hiring trends, and diversity in the workplace. She's been featured on 3 podcasts discussing the intersection of talent acquisition and career coaching. Megan is certified in the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Assessment, has a master's in education and leadership, and represents the top 1% talent on Upwork. Megan is passionate about collaborating with individuals to support career growth and development. Welcome, Megan, to the podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Little background on how I know Megan. When I left my job in December, one of the elements of our severance package was partnering with a company called LHH, and they essentially offer career transition services. And I was matched with Megan. And at first I was mad because I was like, I don't have a job anymore. And then two, I was like, what is this going to be? Like, I'm not really sold on this whole thing. And then we had multiple meetings. We hit it off, and I just learned like such invaluable advice from you during this whole crazy job hunting and searching. So, towards the end of our meeting, I was like, I have to have Megan on. She's such great advice, and I know that like anyone listening that's looking for a job or is trying to maybe stay on top of their resume, I know you're going to have really, really great advice for them. So that's my crazy long intro. Thank you so much for being here. Let's just dive right in. I want to know what you wanted to be when you were growing up.
So I grew up, and this is like so different than what I do now, obviously. But as a kid, you have a childhood dream of what you want to do. And so I
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to be a ballerina, which is so funny because I'm actually wearing a ballet
Aw.
necklace right now. So I grew up dancing my entire life, and I continue to dance even, in college and in grad school. And even where I live now in Silicon Valley, I go to an adult dance studio sometimes. So I always wanted to be a dancer and perform.
Fun.
I've been in multiple plays. I've been like advanced jazz, ballet, tap, hip hop. But then just realistically speaking, I never went down that route because I wanted to do it for fun and not for a full-time career, because that to me was a little bit aggressive as far as like the rehearsals and like crazy diets and all the things that come with that world. But I still do it for fun. So I still get that component of my life outside of career coaching.
Oh, I love that. There's like
Me
a little piece of
too.
me that's like, oh, I think I wanted to be. We joked one time because I was like, I don't remember what I wanted to be growing up because I was too busy making up dances. So it sounds like we lived a very similar childhood where like you were with your friends or like cousins or something, and it was like you were always the choreographer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I used to do, actually, it's so funny you mentioned that because I used to, with one of my childhood friends, we used to like choreograph dances in like my parents'
Mhm.
driveway, and we would just like bring out the music and just,
Yep.
figure out what we're going to choreograph each day. It was
Mhm.
super fun and just memorable.
Yeah,
Oh my
child memory
gosh.
unlocked for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, and what a nice way to like decompress outside of work. Like, not only is it physically
Oh yeah.
moving you, but like a nice mental break. That's so awesome.
Yes.
So
I am
nice.
jealous. Okay, so I take it you're not a professional dancer now, but you are still dancing.
Yes.
Talk us through the transition of realizing dancer life is not for me, maybe high school or college when you start to find the path that really looks like the career that you want to dive into.
So I think I'm a realist, and I think that me thinking about, okay, what does my future look like? I knew after high school I wanted to go to college immediately, and I didn't know what I wanted to study. So my dad was like, you should major in business because every company is a business, and that's a solid foundation. So I ended up majoring in business, and then 3 years in, I changed my major to psychology because I just found that I was doing really well in the psychology courses and that human connection. And I was really interested in just learning more about human behavior. And so from there, I did end up changing my major to psychology and minored in business. And so then, I mean, when you do all of that, are you going to be a psychologist? Maybe, maybe not. But what does that lead you to as far as career path? And so then I just kind of fell into this whole career coaching world because after I completed my undergrad, my first job, I was actually a career counselor. And that's when I realized that I wanted to go to grad school to learn more about it formally and work with college students. And then now I work with adult learners. And so it just all kind of evolved from there. But as most people that go to college, they don't end up doing whatever that major is. And so, but you learn a lot of those valuable skill sets throughout the process.
Totally. I mean, it sounds like a very natural progression for you in terms of you knew what you liked. You had a really good foundation in terms of the business degree and psychology degree with a minor in business. And it just kind of slowly the pieces started coming together. Is that kind of how it felt for you naturally as you were navigating through?
I think figuring out what you want to do, what you're good at, where your strengths meet your passion and interest, I think it's an evolving process. Like even as I have on my LinkedIn, like it's that psychology aha moment, right? And I feel like it takes a long time to get there. And so I feel like, throughout my career and even pre what I would call like career jobs, I had a lot of jobs that really helped me with skill sets, right? Customer service, or, all of these different areas that I feel like I learned a lot from to kind of tell me, okay, I want to go this direction, or I really like this, or I want to work for a small company. And so I think that all of these jobs that I had maybe throughout high school or college or internships kind of led me down the path of where I am at today. But it definitely took me a while to get there. And I think that that's very common. And I think that that's advice for people too, right? Like it takes a while to figure out, doing what you love every day.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I'm curious about your experience as a career counselor. Was that like fresh out of undergrad and then into your master's? Like, what was that experience like for you interacting with college students? Because I think everyone that's listening has probably seen some career counselor, especially college age students, seeing a career counselor going, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Like, you're practically a therapist. Like, what was
Yes.
that experience like for you?
I think it's a mix of all of those things, right? Like part of it, you do feel like you're a therapist, which my psychology background came
Mm-hmm.
in use for that. And I think it really depends on the person, right? Like is this kind of what I even do now, this individualized approach, meeting people where they're at, helping people to understand what they're looking to do next in their career, or helping people with basic things or interview prep, or helping people to understand, well, this is what I like, but I don't like this. So what direction should I go from here? So I think it's definitely a realm of all of that. But I think it's really going back to, like I said, psychology, like understanding the person, understanding what they're looking for, and how can I best support them from an individualized perspective.
Talk to us a little bit more about your master's program. Like, what was the deciding factor for you to go in? And then during your schooling, what was that experience like for you? And kind of how you were able to go through the process and get your additional degree.
So I had this vision of the type of program I was looking for. I wanted something in higher education, adult learners, education, leadership focused. And I ironically found one program, and I only applied for this one program. And I figured, if I got in, it's meant to be. If I didn't get in, then maybe it's not meant to be. I ended up getting in, and it's kind of a funny story tangent, but I applied for the wrong program, and then I kind of made friends with someone who was able to guide me to the right program. And so I eventually made my way there. And essentially, so it's a master's in educational administration and leadership with an emphasis in student affairs, which is a lot to say. So I typically just tell people I have a master's in education and leadership focused on college students. And so a lot of it is student affairs, right? So it's education, it's anything centered around academics, student events, really focused on the student experience. And so then I think that experience actually helped me to get a job in San Francisco proper, where I was the manager of student experience there. So I oversaw all things related to student experience, 200 students in the program. I managed a team of coordinators who helped me execute student events or student policies and processes. And so that background definitely helped me get that job. And the program overall was a small college, so 15 students in my cohort. So that was just a really great opportunity to connect with other people in student affairs.
I feel like that's such an honor to be able to work with college age students because they're entering into this whole new era of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to know if like you've had any specific students or stories of students that you've helped that like really stick with you to this day.
Mm.
Yeah, so when I worked at the university, I worked for a pre-law honors program. And so some of the students, they would come to me and kind of question, I don't know if I want to do pre-law. Do I really want to go to law school? And so there was a time when I worked with a student who was kind of questioning all of that. And I felt like I was able to ask them the right questions. Well, what are you looking for in your future? What does your ideal job look like? As a result of being in this program, what would that look like for you? If you were to take alternative paths outside of this, what would you do? And so I think I was really able to almost like mentor this person, right? Centered around their career objectives. And then from there, they were able to complete the program because, as mentioned, it's pre-law, right? So it sets you up for success in law school. But of course, you have to apply and go through that whole process. And so this person today is like a practicing lawyer, which is awesome. And so I just, once again, it takes a while, kind of what I was saying previously, to get on that path and figure out how you're getting to your ultimate goal.
I feel like something, maybe I'm like a visual person, but it's almost like you need like a little gold star of like all of the people that you helped. Because I was shocked when you were like 5,000 people. I'm like, oh my God, if you put like 5,000 grains of sand or something next, or like rice or whatever, you know, just to kind of visualize how many people you've had an impact on, like that's huge. So thanks for sharing that story. Ellen, you were going to say.
Well, that's so rewarding too. Like we talk about that like dreaded going into college, trying to decide what your major is, being in college, still trying to figure out what your major is, and then graduating and trying to find that first job. So how rewarding for you to be able to be like, yeah, I did it. I went through it, but also I can guide you through the questions that you're having and the doubts that you're having to be able to make the best decision for you. Like, I'm sure that you need like a little guide or something of like 10 questions to ask yourself to go through how you want to, like, what you want to do with your life or something. Honestly, I might still take the quiz. And get some good, self-reflection, some knowledge of where I want to go next. Talk to us about, I know you've kind of jumped around like a couple of different jobs previously. Tell me about the experience of either knowing when you were ready to go to the next place or if the next place found you and what those transitions were like.
Yeah, so I would say that I have found jobs more commonly than jobs have found me. And I think so. I've been in Silicon Valley for over 10 years now. And part of it, it's like, it's been a realm of things, right? And I think that this is also what helps me to be a successful career coach. For example, I've been laid off multiple times, right? I have worked for companies who no longer exist, right? It wasn't even the pandemic, actually. It was just more of, it was a startup and the company just no longer was able to be successful. And so I was kind of forced to leave. And therefore I was looking for a job because I knew something was coming. So part of it is just those natural things that just unfortunately happen in tech in Silicon Valley. There has been other times where it's been a point where, as you know, career growth is important for everyone, right? Like, how am I going to excel at this company? And, people leave jobs all the time because partly they either want a higher salary or they want different benefits. If we look at the whole great resignation that happened a few years ago, mental health, I mean, so many factors related to all of that. So I guess I would say that I've always been pretty proactive in finding my own jobs. And ironically, I haven't really gotten any jobs through networking, which is kind of bizarre because that is such a disconnect from today's world and just in general, the remote world. But I've always been that person to kind of like be proactive and seek out my own opportunities. And then, like I said, sometimes I was forced just due to either a layoff or the company no longer existing.
So, as someone that's gone through a layoff, and I was at a company, well, 3 layoffs happened and I survived, if you want to call it survived 3. Heavy sigh. Do you have any advice for anyone that either has like gone through, experienced it and stayed and like survived and made it through, or you were cut to the curb? Like, can you talk to us a little bit about how like someone can either be proactive or how they can set themselves up for success when something like that happens to you in the workplace?
Yeah, I think a few things come to mind. I think one thing is what I like to frame as always take the call, take the conversation, right? And so I think that if people reach out to you, whether it's on LinkedIn, because that's very common these days, or if someone says, hey, I have an opportunity, or I know someone who might know someone, always take the call. You're not doing anything bad to your company because let's be real, companies let go of people all the time. You're an at-will employee depending on what state you live in. And so I think that we've seen with layoffs that you can dedicate all of your time and energy and every ounce of you to this organization and be a top performer and suddenly be let go. So I think on the flip side of that, you have to look out for yourself. right? You have to do what's best for you, your family, your mental health, if a better opportunity comes. So I think always take the call, always engage in those conversations. I think on the flip side of that, if you are someone who has, to your point, survived multiple rounds of a layoff at a company, I think that sometimes, in my experience, there's been a little bit of a disconnect from people who have been laid off and people who have never been laid off throughout their career. Once again, I'm speaking from my own experience, and I think that sometimes people who have never been laid off don't understand kind of like the 7 stages of grief that go into a layoff, right? It's shock. It's kind of like, what do I do with my life? I'm no longer valued. It's so many factors that there's a lot to process. You're typically caught off guard. And so I think for people who have either never been laid off or people who are in a scenario where they see their colleagues being laid off, I think you need to reach out. Get coffee with them. You need to reach out, offer a recommendation on LinkedIn. You need to reach out and not feel guilty or not feel like, because there's a sentiment that when you're at the company still, you feel guilty reaching out to your colleagues who were previously laid off. And I think that you need to be the bigger person and reach out and make them feel like you still care. I think it's bizarre to work at a company for multiple years and all of a sudden you're done. You never hear from
Yeah.
these people again. I think that's bizarre. And I think I go from talking to you every day on Slack or Teams or email or meetings or having offsites, and then all of a sudden I'm gone and you don't talk to me ever again. Like, that's weird. And so I think don't be afraid to reach out.
I saw you shaking your head, Ellen. You were like, yes, everybody listen up.
Yeah.
I think the sentiment that I get from that is like, yeah, there's so many layoffs going on, in the past 6 months. And I think the sentiment is that it will only continue to be that way moving forward. I think speaking from my own experience, I was just talking to a friend about this, actually, Lindsay, who Ellen just met with last week, and she just recently got laid off. And I was like, it's a weird thing for me because I've never been laid off, but I have this anticipatory anxiety about being laid off simply because that's how everything is right now. And I find myself in overdrive. I am overdoing it. I am overcommitting to my hours. Like, I'm overdoing things to make myself think that like I'm being more valuable. But I have to remind myself in those moments, like, yeah, that's great, but also like they could give me the boot at any point. Like, at any point they could just decide that, so it's like I have to strike that balance of like, yeah, be a beneficial member of the company, because if that's what keeps you from being laid off round one, great. But I was just trying to describe like this anticipatory anxiety, so much so that I had to like delete social media because I was like, I cannot keep watching people talking about getting laid off. That I was like, that's not my situation. I can't relate to it. I can empathize, or I can sympathize. I can't empathize, but it's just like this overwhelming. Even talking about it right now, I'm like getting flushed because it's just like, it's such a fearful situation. And I have so many friends that are in it. And obviously I'm very grateful to have a job, but I'm just like almost doomsday prepping that I'm next.
Yeah.
And it's a weird, weird place to be in. And that's probably what you deal with a lot and, kind of talk people off that ledge. But I'm just like, ooh, it's tiring for everybody. My gosh.
That fear is just like, well, not only the social media piece is like, I had to like slowly work that out of my TikTok algorithm because I was like, okay, I'm seeing this all the time. And I just like, I've got to get it out. Like, I know myself well enough that I'm like, I can't see this kind of stuff. And then on LinkedIn, you see the viral posts. Oh, I was laid off, or oh, my heart goes out to all the Google employees that were just laid off last week. And it's, it's everywhere. It's all consuming. And then if your friends are affected by it, it directly touches you. So it's all consuming. It's all around you, even if you're trying to be mindful and get rid of it, like on your phone or computer, as an example.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the LinkedIn aspect of that. And
Oh my God, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over my feed, right? Because that's kind of my target audience is like job seekers, right? And
Right.
so I feel like, in some ways, I feel like it's just negative energy. And I've been trying to figure out strategically what type of content can I post that's more original, right? Not like, here's tips on your resume, or, everyone's being laid off, here's what to do differently. Like, I've been trying to like figure out what's a way for me to stand out differently where I can post content that's more uplifting or more like tangible in some aspect, just because I think that it's really frustrating for people who have been laid off or people who are currently laid off or people who are always on LinkedIn to look for jobs. It's just a lot to take in and a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Negative
I
energy.
I really appreciate that too, because Megan, I think we've talked about this before as well, but like when, it's most people around you know that you're going through a career transition or like you've been laid off, and everyone is nice and supportive and wants to help. I found the most frustration of when people were just kind of like giving hot air around the subject and not giving me like tangible things to go do, because I was like, I just want to fix it. Like I just want to do the right thing to get a job. And so when I found like either TikToks or LinkedIn or articles, whatever, that were like, oh, make sure that you do this in the title of your resume. It's like, no shit. Everyone knows that. Like, that's not helpful, you know?
Yeah.
So when when you actually, people actually give you genuine, like tangible advice and actionable feedback on a resume or interview, whatever it may be. I'm like, that is what people are like in my situation. That's what they're looking for. Not the support and everything is very nice and helpful. But when people are like, oh, make sure you do this on your resume, I'm like, no, I do not want your advice. It's not helpful.
I've already done that. I know that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Oh
So,
my gosh.
Megan, back to your experience, because we definitely want to save the end for like tips and tricks and things that you can offer, that tangible advice that we're looking for. So, in your current role, what does your day to day look like? What are the peaks and valleys, the things that you like, don't like, and just average day?
Yeah, so I am kind of in this unique situation due to a layoff myself. So I was laid off last year unexpectedly, and I kind of took on all of these career consulting jobs. So, as mentioned earlier, LHH is one of them. So I currently work for 5 different companies as a career coach. So I work for some software engineering boot camps. I work for LHH, which helps people who were recently laid off from jobs in tech. I do some career development content, write some articles, things like that. And essentially, my day to day is a lot of one on ones, kind of back to my original approach of making sure that people feel seen, heard, and valued, right? When I talk to you, I do my research before I talk to you. I follow up with you after, just to make sure that people really feel connected and feel like I can support them. And I'm not just, there's thousands of career coaches out there, right? So what is my brand differentiation? And so how do I go about doing that? So day to day is definitely individualized. I definitely specialize in resume optimization, LinkedIn optimization, behavioral interview prep centered around like STAR method, those types of questions, offer negotiation, anything related to just networking and just being up to date in current trends and technology and what it's like to job search, because it's just so different now.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I was thinking too. Also, like a lot of times you'll see career advice from people that have probably have like 40 years under their belt, and the methods that they use to get their jobs are not the methods that people use to get their jobs. I joke about this all the time. My dad has been at the same company since he graduated college, and I'm like, how did you find your job? Like, was it a newspaper? Like, actually, like, not to like age
I'm
him
sure he
or,
loved that
like,
question.
but honestly, I'm like, well, the website, like, just it's interesting. And maybe that's also too, like, where you probably are able to really connect with people. It's like, I've done these methods, I've used these to get jobs. Like, that relatability factor is so big.
Still kind of laughing at the newspaper.
It's true. It's true.
No, it is.
I was watching a movie the other day, and it was based in the 80s, and there were like job applications, and it was like a newspaper clipping.
Well,
so
and back in the day where you would go around and pass out your paper resume, right?
Yes,
like
I had in college, there was probably a career counselor that came and visited, and I remember they were talking about tactics that people would use, and there was something about like a gal sent her resume with like a tea bag to some manager or whatever. And it was like, call me when you get this and we'll have tea together. And I'm like, dude, would people do that now? Like, and I didn't graduate college less than 10 years ago. So I'm like, That's so
I remember someone saying like it was important to print it on like luxurious paper. And I remember like my
Yes.
first couple of jobs, like literally applying for like nannying and teaching positions. I'm handing out like a cardboard piece of paper, like hire
Yeah.
me.
So weird.
Okay, so now that we know what your day-to-day looks like, do you enjoy the balance that is, working for 5 different companies, content creation? Like, did you see yourself getting to this point, and now that you're here, do you really enjoy it?
I thought that this would be an interim thing, right? And so
Okay.
after I
Mm-hmm.
got laid off last year, I figured, oh, I want to do career coaching and this is what I enjoy doing. Do I want to do it for 5 companies? No, it's total chaos, right? I have 5 calendars, I have Slack messages, I have team messages. It's a lot to keep
Mm-hmm.
up with. And it's hard to just like get my day organized because I'm constantly switching gears, right? And I do work very
Mm-hmm.
well with the context switching. I know a lot of times people are like, no, you need to do one thing for X amount of time. And I actually work better if I'm doing 1,000 things. So it does fit my how I like to work, but realistically, it's a lot, you know? I mean, I think one benefit is I'm getting quite a diverse range of people I'm working with, right? So people from all backgrounds, all ages, all walks of life, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that helps me also to build more credibility, right? Or just to kind of understand, okay, this person over here is facing the same thing as this person. Where are the trends and commonalities? And then it just helps me, like I said, I want to be credible. I'm not a certified career coach. Do I need that to be successful? No. But I need to be confident and I need to be able to give you data points, or I need to be able to speak to you in the way that's most helpful for you. Are you more data oriented? Are you more of like, hey, let's like figure out the vibe, how can I best help you, right? And so I think that's the most important thing for me, going back to kind of that individualized component.
I get it. The like juggling. I think that there is some, if you appreciate having a lot of balls in the air and having no day be the same, like what you're working on primarily is the same, but you're talking to different people and you're hearing different stories and navigating different paths for everyone. I bet that can be a lot of work. I ask this question a lot, and I realize that I ask it a lot because I don't ever want it to be like one of the things where it's like only women get asked this, but I'm just curious, like in your situation, kind of back to the therapy, you're dealing with people in a very vulnerable state. How do you separate yourself from, after an appointment ends? Like, how are you able to kind of step back and decompress and almost kind of like we were saying with social media, like be able to maybe potentially like remove yourself from this situation so that you can maintain a status quo like emotional state?
Yeah, I think a few things. I think one for me personally, I think because I've been laid off before, I can really empathize with people and really
Mm-hmm.
understand what they're going through. And so when people tell me about that, I feel like I can relate to that. And I feel like that's when I will be vulnerable and share with you that I've been through that same experience. I'm definitely not trying to make
Mm-hmm.
it about me at all. It's just more about like, I get it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what you're going through. I've been there. And I think that people kind of value that because they understand, oh, this person actually understands the process. They're not just here to like guide me through and walk me through some tangible steps and then never talk to me again or care about me as a person. So I think that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing. I think that for me in general, I try to plan my day where I kind of have like buffers in between things, or where I can kind of like step outside, or and I work from home, which is great because I can work out, I can eat healthy, I can,
Mm-hmm.
go in my backyard or whatever the case is. And I think that that's super helpful. I also make sure that, I don't work weekends or I don't work after a certain hour of the day, because for me too, kind of that separation of like having social plans or just having like a me night, I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's really important too for that reset or that mental health, or for me too, because a lot of the work I do is very specific, right? So I need to be on every day, whether I'm on camera or not. I need to be
Definitely.
on, and I need to feel that people know that I'm here for, I'm, I have all your attention right now, right? And I want people to
Mm-hmm.
walk away from that call with that.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you definitely do. I mean, speaking from experience, genuinely, like the first couple of weeks after that layoff was just like so weird. Like you mentioned earlier, the 7 stages of grief. And I thought they were 5 when I was talking about them with my husband. And I was trying to remember them all. And I forgot like depression and some other really awful one. And I was like, oh God, oh no, I'm in for a wild ride. But like, go like those first, couple days, weeks after, and going from speaking like meeting people through meetings and calls, and then going to not talking at all. I probably talked your ear off, sorry, but
No,
it
you're
was
totally
just
good.
so nice to like connect someone, and then have that connection of also I've been in your shoes and here's what we can do to like get you back up on your feet kind of thing. So I can definitely speak from experience of that one-on-one connection that you do get, and pride yourself on in your work, like genuinely I so appreciate it, so thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, let's get into the fun, like tangible things that we talked about earlier too. I'm not going to give it a number, but like tell me your top like couple of job tips right now, specifically for the job market. Of anyone who's looking right now, like what are the couple of things that they should be doing that you really, really recommend to people?
Yeah. So I think, tangibly speaking, the resume and the LinkedIn are the top two most important things, right? So having a fully optimized resume, recruiters do spend, this is true, 6 to 7 seconds looking at a resume. And I will tell you that if I look at a resume and I have no idea why you're applying to this job, or it has some boring like objective summary, and it has these generic words like proven track record, don't do that. So essentially, your resume needs to be 1 or 2 pages, depending on your level of experience, not more than 2 pages. It needs to be crystal clear in 6 to 7 seconds why you're applying for this role, what your qualifications are. Don't use those terrible buzzwords, like I said, proven track record. The LinkedIn. So as we know, LinkedIn is still the #1 website that companies use. Companies pay 150K a year to use LinkedIn Enterprise, and LinkedIn really doesn't have competitors, right? So having a fully
Mm-hmm.
optimized profile, keyword headline, what's your personal brand, right? And that gets a little bit tricky because if you're going to have 1,800 versions of your resume, you can only have one version of LinkedIn. So I think having a fully optimized resume, LinkedIn profile, that's the application materials. I think on the other side of that is, I know networking is exhausting, people feel awkward, but still in today's world, most of the people I'm working with, and for context, I'm working with 150 people right now, give or take. And so I will say that the networking, most of the people I'm working with are getting in front of a human via a coffee chat or formal interview or informal interview through a connection or through someone they know. And so
Mm-hmm.
don't just apply cold. Yes, that can be part of your strategy, but it can't be your only strategy. So I think don't be afraid to network. I work with a lot of software engineers and I work with a lot of people who are very much like, I'm a private person. I don't want to network. I don't want to put myself out there. And so I fully acknowledge that. I'm fully aware of that. And I understand that and empathize with that. But you need a job. You want to, figure out how to progress in your career. And so I think in today's remote world, it's almost easier than going to a meetup in person or going to a conference in person, right? And so I think not being afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn, but once again, you have to have a very clear and compelling message to get someone to respond to you. What's the goal? What's the intention? Different conversation. But I guess my whole point is feeling confident in your resume, LinkedIn profile, and continuing to utilize the network avenue.
I think LinkedIn is so fascinating. And as
Mhm.
somebody who is a very basic user of it, it's so interesting to me because I'm like, literally what was, you know, uh, kind of praised 6 months ago, not praised now. And it is a social media that like really you have to keep up with the trends. What is a trend on LinkedIn that you're really loving right now?
Oh, I was going to go the opposite way with that one. Um,
Tell me.
I just think, well, what comes to mind immediately, which doesn't fully answer your question, but what comes to
Mhm.
mind immediately is I think LinkedIn has dramatically changed over time. And I think that when I joined it, which was almost 12 years ago. I just got like a little anniversary thing a few weeks ago. When I joined it, it was a professional networking site. Only professional networking. I would say, in my experience, post 2020, it's now a social media site. It's all social media. It's about influencers. It's about posting photos. It's about sharing very personal things. And I try to keep mine only on the professional side. Like, yeah, I might share a photo here and there, but because that's back to the LinkedIn algorithm, different story. But I do feel like that the platform has changed over time. With that said, I guess to better answer your question is I have found significant value in using it for the networking purposes it should be used for. So as a result of me engaging or me having, part of it is me posting original content, people reach out to me, or people find me because my keyword headline says career coach, expert resume writer. People find me, and I know this because I've asked them how they found me, have found me and reached out to me and asked to work with me individually. And so I think that I still have found value in using it for networking conversations. It's also led to podcasts I've been on. It's led to people that hired me for some type of career coaching. So I have found value in that. But in order to do that successfully, you need to have a fully optimized profile and you need to post content and engage on it so that people can find you as well.
You
We're
say keep it to the
currently-
basics.
Yeah.
Which I like. Use it for what it is.
Both my own personal profile and then also the one for the podcast, we've been kind of like batching content out. So we're doing like a little experiment probably over the next month to try and post, like, I think it's 3 times a month. Oh my gosh, 3 times a week. And I'm really interested to see like what our analytics are going to be and kind of how that's going to continue to drive. Because I personally didn't want to post things on my personal LinkedIn because I was like, what am I going to say? Like, and that's embarrassing. And like, I don't want to put myself out there. No, I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't care. I'm putting myself out there.
Yeah.
What's the worst that's going to happen? Oh, a job offer is going to come my way. That sounds terrible. You know what I mean? So I am really interested to see how that can benefit personally myself, but then also the podcast as well. So I think the algorithm is another really interesting piece that you mentioned earlier. And I've gotten some interesting advice of what types of posts perform better than others. So kind of with the algorithm piece, can you talk to us a little bit about like what you see and what your expertise is there?
Yeah, so I think the algorithm is bizarre. I think that's the best way to put it. So I have recently learned, for example, LinkedIn does not want you to leave the platform. So don't post an article that's going to take the person externally off of LinkedIn. That's a no-no because the algorithm doesn't like that. If you want to do that, you need to post it in the comments. Another interesting thing about the algorithm is that your post gets the most traction in the first 45 minutes that you post something. And so, for example, I'm part of a career coach group, a Slack group, and sometimes people will message the group and say, hey, can you help boost my post? Because the first 45 minutes is when it gets the most traction. So that's how posts get that traction immediately within that time frame. I think it's really hard to understand when to post because there's different time zones, right? So, and I've experimented with different time zones on my own, posting at 8 a.m. Pacific or posting at night Pacific. And I think that that is a little bit hard to understand what's best there. Obviously, the bigger network you have, the more reach it's going to provide. And I think I always make all of my posts public. My profile is also public. So that could also have, a weight onto who interacts with your post, right? If it's only for your network or you have a small network, obviously posting photos or videos are going to give you a higher percentage. The trend now is also when you post content, having the content be like one-liners, so that it's not this massive paragraph. Because thinking about how people view it on their phone, right? If you look at an email on your phone and it's really long, I'm like, mark is unread. I'm reading that later. I'm not reading through all that text right now. So I think there's a lot of interesting nuances about the algorithm and how it works. Obviously, like hashtags can give or take, maybe improve a little bit of it. But I also think too, when you're posting content, I always tell people that I work with, what's your intention behind this post, right? Is it to raise awareness? Is it to ask a question? And as we know, the more consistent you are, and I read something this morning, don't post twice a day because it messes up the algorithm. So essentially being consistent, right? Like to your point, if you're posting a few times a week, that's great, right? But then you need to continue to draw your audience, right? Like get more followers, get more traction, have people repost it, have people reshare it, because then that's going to come up in other people's feeds as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I wish
sticky note.
I know. I was like, I literally have a notebook right here. I'm like, I got to write all these things down after. My brain is like firing with all these things that we can go do.
I know. Another platform with all the algorithm isms,
I know.
you know, to be mindful of.
Mm-hmm.
My God. Well, that's perfect timing, Ellen, because we were just talking about our LinkedIn strategy. So thank you, Megan, for the advice. Taking it back to you, Megan, I am super curious in all of this. How do you describe success for yourself?
I think it's unsolicited feedback that I actually get daily. And it comes in the form of LinkedIn messages and emails and verbal conversations. I don't know if you probably are familiar with this, but sometimes people put like a brag folder on their desktop and they like screenshot when people say something. I actually had mine as performance review quotes because back to me being a realist, I'm going to pull those quotes from my performance review, right? That's not the point, but that's just a way to think about it. And so I think for me, like I get constant validation from people of like, this was so helpful, or thank you so much. Or even I get a lot of people that refer their friends and family to me. And so that happens weekly almost. And so it just really validates that people either value my expertise and experience, or they really liked working with me. Someone messaged me last week and said, you're the best resume writer and career coach I've ever worked with. I just referred you to a bunch of people. And I literally screenshot that and like sent it to my family. And so I think that's just the thing that just, it's that I'm not asking for it. And it just makes you feel like humble and just like I found the right path for me because I happen to be good at it, but people also recognize the value.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And to like, as a consultant, you don't have like the boss over you saying all of these things that you did or didn't do. So to have that direct feedback from people that you've worked hand in hand with, I can't even imagine what it's like to get that message up on your phone, and like to have your family be able to experience that with you is so sweet. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. Ellen, how do you feel about getting into some rapid fire questions?
Let's do it. Okay. Tell us what your favorite way to unwind after work is.
Probably doing something social. So probably something with girlfriends, whether that's like going out to dinner or like having a wine night or having a movie night, and just completely disconnecting. And I think going to a different environment, right? I think in today's like work from home environment, a lot of people, it's like, this is my office, right? So I associate this with work. So at the end of the day, I'm out of here, right? And so I think having that social time with friends or family or my boyfriend or whoever it is, to just really step away from everything, I think is really important and a good reset.
Sarah talks about the third place a lot, of just like somewhere else outside of your house to go be and to just like disassociate, especially like outside of work too. So I love that, especially time with girlfriends. That's like invaluable.
It is needed. Megan, second question for you. What is one thing that you have to make it through the workday?
So when you shared this question with me earlier, the first thing that came to mind is coffee. So every single morning I have my morning routine. I change my calendar of like inspirational quotes for the day. And then I make coffee and I just drink it black. I drink 3 cups of coffee a day, and I'm cut off by noon because after that I'm like, I can't have any more caffeine, but definitely need coffee.
Sorry, did you say 3 cups of coffee?
Yes, that's what I have every day.
Oh my goodness.
I can have one and then I'm like, hopefully I'll go to sleep tonight. Such a wimp.
I'm off by noon because after that, no caffeine. I don't drink soda, none of that. So it's just the morning, but it's only hot and it's just like part of my morning routine.
I get it. I get it. It's definitely coffee is like a whole experience. It's the smell,
Yeah.
it's the sounds. Yeah,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
whole thing. A warm
Mhm.
mug. I get
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's practical, but I like it. I appreciate it. Tell me what your favorite corporate catchphrase is.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I feel like I can answer the other one about what's the corporate catchphrase you don't
Your
like the
your
most.
corporate pet peeve.
Um, yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Um, I feel like okay, because I'm a lurker on TikTok, and so I watch a lot of like these workplace TikTok videos, and I feel like so much of the
Oh, yeah.
content is just so relatable. All these keywords, like, can we circle back on that? Can we put a pin in this? Can we follow up on this? Can I piggyback off of that? So I feel like I'm constantly hearing all of this like lingo that's honestly annoying. I think like the 40,000 foot view. I mean, I could like go on all day about all the lingo, and I think it's all just ridiculous, right? Because it's like, can we just talk normal? Like we're having a conversation and
Thank
not all these
you.
buzzwords.
Totally.
I just saw a video where it was a gal that was like recording, which is a whole other thing. She was recording basically her exit interview, and it was like a 6 minute, it was a long form video. And somebody literally in the comments was like, go to 4 minutes, or go to the 4 minute mark. The first 4 minutes are corporate jargon.
Yeah,
And I was like, thank you. You just saved me 4 minutes. Like, I totally get it. I have to imagine that, like, I mean, I work from home, and Michael, my husband, when he comes home from work and I'm just like slinging out all these corporate words on my calls, he's just like, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
this is not different persona. Different
I think
persona.
one of the worst ones too is I'll give you back 5 minutes.
I
Give me
hate
back
that.
5 minutes? Like, really? I think
Thank
that's one of
I
the
you.
hate that. Mhm. Agreed.
Well, I feel like I've learned so much, and honestly, I feel like I'm just like talking with a friend, and now I get it, Ellen, because Ellen just sent all your praises, Megan. Like, after Ellen and I have frequent conversations, obviously about work, not just because of the podcast, but just because we're
right.
friends. And I think you brought her like so much peace and just validation and just a
Mhm.
listening ear. So I can't even imagine like how that feels for you. And
Yeah.
I hope you have just continued success and just all the good endeavors. Let's hope that we can ride this out together and make it through. But thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Ellen, any closing remarks?
Seriously, thank you. Like the tips are invaluable, but also just like I feel like your personal touch with just how you engage with your, I don't want to say clients because I feel like that doesn't sound super great, but engaging with the people that you work with is just really such a testament to you and how you work. So I'm going to take a piece of advice from you and go leave you a LinkedIn recommendation after this because I don't think I've done that yet. So that's my next piece of homework for myself. Thank you everybody so much for listening to another episode of Just a Job. We'll make sure to leave all the places you can find Megan in the show notes, so make sure to check her out. As always, make sure you're following us on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. I think that's all the places. Oh, and look, the brewer made an appearance.
Aw.
He's like, okay, I'm ready to claim my spot
puppy.
back on the bed. Again, thanks everybody for your time. And remember, at the end of the day, it's just a job. Bye.